Hello class, welcome. This video is for CIS270, Essentials of Network and Information Security. My name is Dr. Conrad de la Cruz. I'm your instructor for this class, and this is your weekly video. In these weekly videos, I like to talk about the module for the week and give you enhanced information so that you can have better understanding of the content for the week or lesson. So let's talk about it. So cybersecurity objectives. Cybersecurity is the practice of protecting networks, data, programs from cyber hackers. The primary objectives of cybersecurity programs are to safeguard the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our data, our systems, our networks, and our entire organization. These are the pillars of cybersecurity. In U-Certify, they will add two more components, which are authentication and non-repudiation. But before we dive into those, so we're going to cover five things as far as objectives. Confidentiality, meaning ensuring that sensitive information that is confidential, is not viewed by people who are not authorized to view that information. Integrity is ensuring that information is accurate and not modified by anyone who is not authorized to modify that information. And of course, availability is making sure that that system or data is always available for the business to use. Now, authentication is added on here because it has been proven to help with cybersecurity objectives. So authentication meaning multi-factor authentication, strong password policies. These are things that can help prevent cyber attackers from getting into our systems, stealing our data, and causing damage for our company. And now non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is ensuring that actions and transactions cannot be denied. What does that mean? It means that logging and auditing mechanisms to track actions and prevent claims of false activities. Logging and auditing. Just remember that. So for this week's video, it's going to be a little longer than 2 minutes, so bear with me. The next thing I wanted to cover was data breach risks. Data breach risks occur when sensitive data, health data, credit card data, company classified data is accessed or disclosed without company authorization, meaning it's been exfiltrated or stolen. This poses a serious risk for us, especially depending on your industry, right? Healthcare, finance, government. This can cause all kinds of damage, including reputation, financial losses, and legal consequences. There are a number of examples every year that these happen. Now, the risks associated with data breaches obviously stem from reputational damage, financial loss, and legal consequences, right? But what are those exactly? Loss of trust. Loss of trust is when a breach happens, customers will tend to want to not deal with your company, right? So you'll lose customers. The financial impact, financial losses come in the form of legal fines, lawsuits. The cost of managing a breach can be very expensive. And if it's a ransomware type attack, then the company could consider paying the ransom to get their data released or systems released. And then there's regulatory penalties. Non-compliance of data protection regulations such as GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, these things can cause issues for our business. So, for example, if we are a health company and we are obligated to comply with HIPAA compliance, and we have a cybersecurity event, or we have some kind of miscompliance that causes us to lose our HIPAA certification, this means we cannot deal with that type of data, which is basically our business, right? So that's a huge loss for us. So what are the common causes of data breaches? Human error, weak security controls, phishing attacks, malware, right? And what are these things? Human error. Employees accidentally sending sensitive information via email, right? Everybody's done this. You're replying to an email, you decide to add someone, and that email happens to have confidential data, and that person who you just added is not preview to that, is not authorized to view that data. So you got to be careful with that. That's an example of human error. Weakness in security control is not having multi-factor, right? As we all know, username and password is just not enough. We need a third factor in there, whether it be biometric, multi-factor with your phone, SMS text, anything that can add a little more security is highly beneficial for our security controls. And then phishing attacks. Phishing attacks remains one of the top ways cyber attackers can get into our systems. Why? Again, anytime you have a human behind a computer, there's always a risk. We're all very busy, and sometimes when going through emails, you tend to kind of quickly click on links, open files, instead of carefully analyzing that email, right? Who did it come from? Are you expecting this email? Is it trying to get you to do something or divulge sensitive information through email? These are things we have to be asking ourselves when we're in front of Outlook or Gmail or what have you. And then malware, we already talked about ransomware. And of course, we have Trojans, other viruses that can infect our systems that can cause time loss, efficiency loss, and of course, data loss. Now, implementing the security controls, right? Cybersecurity, that's what we do. Our practice involves implementing security controls. And what are these? These are measures that help protect our organization's assets and information systems from cyber attackers. These can be categorized in three different types: preventative, detective, and then corrective controls. So, types of security controls. So, preventative controls aim to prevent security incidents before they occur. So, what are they? We're talking about firewalls. We're talking about access control, ACLs, encryption, and multi-factor, right? Detective controls, we're talking about IDS, IPS. We're talking about log monitoring. We're talking about vulnerability scanners. We're talking about antivirus agents. And then corrective controls. These aim to mitigate or remedy the effects of security weaknesses or incidents. Backup and recovery plans, right? If something happens, we can recover because we have backup. Incident response plans. If something happens, we can quickly respond, eradicate, and make changes to make sure that our systems are restored back to normal, right? And then patch management. Patch management is ensuring that all system software are up to date and that the vulnerability on those systems are patched. So those are the three main security controls that we are trying to implement as a cybersecurity program. So let's talk about data protection. We've talked about data breach. Let's talk about data protection. Data protection refers to safeguarding the data from unauthorized access, alteration, or destruction. Again, those three aim on CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? Availability is from destruction, right? If your computer, your systems, your data is destroyed, you can't access it. Alteration, that's integrity, right? And then unauthorized access, that's confidentiality. So what are the principles we need to talk about? Principles are we need to apply data encryption, right? Making sure that this data that we have, that we value so much, that sits and resides in our systems, our computers, our servers, is encrypted at rest and it is encrypted in transit. Data masking. This involves hiding sensitive information by replacing it with non-sensitive versions that can be used for testing and development and stuff like that. You never want production data in your lower environments, right? Production data is extremely sensitive. And then we have to apply access controls. Access controls are restrictions to data based on user roles. And these permissions are only for authorized personnel that should have access to this type of data, right? For example, RBAC, role-based access control. Attribute-based access control These type of things can help us make sure we have a unified way of giving access, right? For example, if we have a finance division department, right, and a new finance employee comes, we should have a finance role that we can assign to the new employee so that they can gain access to their normal day-to-day stuff, right? Finance applications, some finance uh, documents, right? Finance shares, finance SharePoint, all that, right? That way it's always consistent and we always know what everybody has access to. Data minimization, limiting the collection and storage of personal or sensitive data to only what is necessary for business operations. What does that mean? It means data retention, it means regular audits, right? So if we're dealing with data that we've collected today, that means whatever our data retention says, it should have time boxes, right? Normally, if you're dealing with day-to-day data, that data should only live on your systems, on your laptop for X amount of time, and that should be defined in policy. And that's also derived from a regulatory standard or some kind of framework. Which brings me to compliance and regulations. Adhering to laws and regulations regarding data protection, such as GDPR, which means General Data Protection Regulation, and Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is HIPAA, and Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. These frameworks, these regulations will help us build our security program so that we can better protect our business and the data that we handle. Now, let's explore some cybersecurity threats. Cybersecurity threats are potential events or actions that can be that can lead to compromise of confidential data. It'll hurt our three pillars: confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the systems and or our data. Understanding these threats is important. So what are threats? Threats are malware, right? Threats are social engineering. Threats are denial of service. Threats are man in the middle attacks. Threats also include insider threats. Insider threats, whether it be intentional or unintentional, they are still a threat. Often, insider threats happen because someone did not know what they're doing or they were rushing through things and they accidentally did it. Let me give you an example. For example, pretend I'm a firewall engineer. I'm implementing a new rule. I'm rushing. I have a party to go to, but I accidentally deleted a rule on top of the rule I'm implementing, which caused massive amounts of outages. That's an accident. However, it does qualify as an insider threat. There you go. All right. Now, let's talk about threat intelligence. Threat intelligence refers to the collection and analysis of information about existing and potential cyber threats. This is important. This is where cybersecurity operations usually lives. It helps us proactively defend against threats by providing insights into attackers' tactics, techniques, and procedures. Those are called TTPs. So what are types of threat intelligence? I refer to these as threat intelligence feeds because you usually have more than one, right? So identifying emerging threats through security vendors, right? They'll tell you, hey, we have a vulnerability. Oh, there's a new type of technique. There's an attack. Government agencies like CISA will help us. Internal systems tools will help us. If you run Cisco at your company, they have a service called Talos. They're very active with threat intelligence and giving us information about emerging threats. Improving our incident response. It's not enough just having a document that says you have an incident response or some kind of plan. You have to practice it. You have to practice it regularly. And on top of that, you have to have a tabletop just to open discussion on how to improve this process. And then sharing information. This is highly important. Depending on how big your company is, your organization is, could be small, could be medium, could be large, could be extra large, right? It's never enough to have your department trying to stop the adversary. Sometimes you have to reach out and collaborate with other companies, perhaps in the same industry, same retail, health, airlines, finance, right? That way you all can get new innovations together and figure out how to better protect your companies. So, other types of threat intelligence include tactical intelligence. This provides information about specific threats and attacks. Operational intelligence. This provides insights onto specific campaigns and techniques, right? So, operational intelligence, an example of is a few months ago, right? We had November. Usually in November, we have Black Friday, right? Operationally, you know this. And operationally, you know that there's going to be a lot of phishing attacks during this time. Strategic intelligence. This is high level information that is relevant to the organization's leadership used to understand a broader threat landscape. So, for example, trends and forecasts, right? One of my threat intelligence feeds, and maybe some of yours, will tell you, hey, the finance industry is getting a lot of these types of attacks. You know, if you fall in this area, make sure you're protecting your system, right? That sort of thing. And then we have what's called the technical intelligence. These involve data about specific vulnerabilities and exploits used by attackers, often collected from logs, traffic analysis, and external sources. For example, identifying vulnerabilities in a commonly used software package that can be patched, right? That's technical. Through traffic analysis, you can tell maybe if there's an IOC happening, IOC meaning indicator of compromise, right? You're starting to see certain web activity, certain computers reaching out to websites, this type of information flowing through your network. That could mean an IOC is happening, and that is a technical intelligence, and you should definitely act on that from an cybersecurity operational perspective. Okay, that was about 17, 18 minutes. That was a lot. I apologize that this was a long video, but I wanted to have a comprehensive first week video, and I also apologize that it's kind of late, but to hopefully your key takeaways are, right, cybersecurity program, our objectives are CIA. On top of that, authentication, non-repudiation, right? We talked about data breaches. We talked about security controls. We also talked about cybersecurity threats and intelligence and how to use that to your advantage. All right, so that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you guys are having a great week. Like I said, a lot of you are well into your way moving along with U-Certify, but some of you are moving a little bit slower than others. That's all right. It is still the first week. You don't have to be in quiz 8 by now. However, hopefully this video helps you, and I'll see you guys later.